South Korea and France have upgraded their bilateral ties to a global strategic partnership on the occasion of French President Emmanuel Macron's state visit to Seoul on Friday, and have also agreed to secure safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz. U.S. President Donald Trump continues to ramp up pressure on Iran by threatening to strike and destroy bridges and electric power plants in Iran, while Iran claims to have shot down a second U.S. F-35 fighter jet. With the spring now in full bloom across the country, Seoul's iconic Yeouido Cherry Blossom Festival has returned, drawing record crowds to one of Korea's most beloved seasonal events. President Yeouido today hosted his French counterpart Emmanuel Macron. The leaders agreed to take the two countries' partnership to a higher level and discuss the situation with the Strait of Hormuz. Our Blue House correspondent Yoon Jung-min leads our coverage tonight.
The French first couple was given a red carpet welcome by their South Korean counterparts at the Blue House. President Lee and French President Emmanuel Macron on Friday agreed to upgrade the two countries' ties to a global strategic partnership.
양국 관계가 글로벌 전략적 동반자 관계로 격상되었다는 점에서 이번 방안은 더욱 의미 있는 이정표로 남게 될 것입니다.
On the occasion of celebrating 140 years of our diplomatic ties, I believe it's a good chance to elevate the partnership between South Korea and France.
South Korea and France plan to strengthen their partnership in trade and investment, as well as critical minerals, AI, semiconductors, and nuclear energy.
오늘 체결되는 대한민국 한수원과 프랑스 기업 오라노, 프라마톰 간 양해각서는 우리 원전의 원료를 안정적으로 공급하는 것은 물론 글로벌 원자력 시장에 공동 진출할 기반을 마련할 수 있을 것입니다.
As for bilateral trade volume in 2025, it's been doubled compared to a decade ago. It's been stimulated by the free trade agreement between the EU and Korea. I also plan to meet Korean businesses and discuss their investment plans in France.
The conflict in the Middle East and its impact on global energy and economies were high on the agenda.
원자력 및 해상 풍력 분야의 협력을 확대하여 에너지 안보를 강화하는 한편으로 호르무즈 해협 내 안전한 해상 수송로 확보를 위해 협력하겠다는 의지도 확인하였습니다.
As for the Middle East crisis and the conditions to ease the conflict, we need to make sure these issues are clearly resolved. We also need to ensure the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz.
They also addressed efforts to resume dialogue with North Korea and achieving peace on the Korean peninsula. France is a permanent UN Security Council member and this year's host of the G7 summit. Their cooperation will also extend to cultural and people-to-people exchanges, including expanding a working holiday program. The French president invited President Lee to this year's G7 summit. This comes as Seoul sees a growing need to strengthen strategic communication with Paris amid global uncertainties. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
And as part of the French first couple state visit to South Korea, First Ladies Kim Ye-kyung and Brigitte Macron visited the National Museum of Korea in Seoul today. They toured the museum's permanent exhibition hall, where they viewed well-known artifacts, including the Baegyu Janggak Eugwae, royal records from Korea's Joseon dynasty. The collection was taken by French troops in 1866 and returned to Korea in 2011 under a permanent loan agreement. During the visit, Kim and Macron also spoke about the need to strengthen cultural cooperation between South Korea and France. President Lee will sit down with the leaders of South Korea's two main political parties next Tuesday to discuss the economic fallout from the Middle East conflict. A senior presidential secretary for political affairs, Hong Ik-pyo, told reporters on Friday that he proposed a meeting himself, stressing the need for national unity and bipartisan cooperation in responding to the crisis. The talks will be held over lunch at the Blue House with President Lee, ruling Democratic Party Chairman Chung Cheong-rae, and Jang Dong-hyuk, the main opposition of People Power Party, in attendance. The Ministry of Finance and Economy unveiled emergency steps on Friday, targeting naphtha and crude oil shortages affecting daily essentials like food packaging and garbage bags. As part of its plan to ease the supply chain bottlenecks caused by the Middle East conflict, the ministry announced two major measures. Now, first, importers will be exempt from tariffs on extra shipping costs caused by rerouting around the blockaded Strait of Hormuz. On top of that, quality inspections for garbage bags will be cut from 10 days to just 1 day, and local governments can now buy and redistribute stocks without bidding limits. The government expects these temporary changes to quickly clear import and production disruptions and also stabilize household living costs. In the meantime, the U.S. is ramping up its threats against Iran, with President Donald Trump now warning that U.S. forces could target the country's bridges and power infrastructure. Kim So-young has this report.
President Trump is once again signaling that the United States could launch even broader attacks on Iran. In a post on Truth Social, Trump wrote, "Our military, the greatest and most powerful anywhere in the world, hasn't even started destroying what's left in Iran," and suggested that the next major infrastructure targets could be its bridges and electric power plants. The United States has already struck the B1 bridge, a major highway link between Tehran and Karaj. The attack came a day after Trump warned he could bomb Iran back to the Stone Ages.
We're going to hit them extremely hard over the next 2 to 3 weeks. We're going to bring them back to the Stone Ages where they belong.
Iran quickly vowed retaliation, launching missile and drone attacks on U.S. bases in Jordan and Bahrain. Israel also came under renewed missile fire, while Kuwait military said it was intercepting hostile missiles and drones in its airspace. Iran's Revolutionary Guard also claimed attacks on an Amazon cloud facility in Bahrain and an Oracle data center in Dubai. However, Dubai denied the Oracle site was hit. Still, with surging oil prices beginning to weigh on the U.S. economy and public opinion increasingly turning against the war, some analysts say Trump may also be looking for a diplomatic off-ramp. They argue that his aggressive rhetoric may itself a sign that he is under growing pressure to bring the conflict to an end. Meanwhile, the UN Security Council is set to vote on a resolution to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, though it has been watered down after opposition from China, Russia, and France, all permanent members of the Council. During a visit to South Korea, French President Emmanuel Macron rejected reopening the strait by force, calling it unrealistic and warning it would expose ships to attacks by the Revolutionary Guard and ballistic missiles. Meanwhile, Iran's Deputy Foreign Minister Kazem Garibabadi said Thursday that Tehran has nearly completed the first draft of a new navigation framework, which would be implemented in coordination with Oman. Kim So-young, Arirang News.
And as the regional conflict escalates, Iran claims to have attacked a U.S. aircraft and a cloud data center allegedly linked to the e-commerce platform Amazon. An Sung-jin has the details.
Amid heightened tensions between Iran and the United States, Tehran claims it shot down a U.S. aircraft. According to Reuters on Friday, citing an Iranian news agency, this would be the second downing of a U.S. F-35 stealth fighter over Iran's central territory. The United States has not confirmed the claim, and no official statement has been released by the U.S. Central Command. This comes following another incident on March 19th when an F-35 returning from a mission made an emergency landing at a U.S. airbase in the Middle East. CNN reported at the time that the aircraft may have been struck by Iran. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps claimed responsibility, stating it had downed the fighter jet. The Lockheed Martin F-35 is a fifth-generation stealth fighter used by more than 20 countries and widely known as one of the most advanced combat aircraft. On the same day, CNN reported that the IRGC claimed responsibility for an attack 2 days earlier on a cloud facility in Bahrain, allegedly linked to e-commerce giant Amazon. Amazon has not confirmed whether the targeted site hosted one of its cloud data centers. The attack reportedly targeted telecommunications infrastructure. A Bahraini official condemned the attack as a serious and deliberate act of aggression against Bahrain's territory and its civilians. The IRGC described the strike as retaliation for what it called the assassination of Iranian citizens by the United States. The group had earlier warned of attacks against global technology firms it accused of supporting U.S. operations, naming 17 companies which included Apple, Microsoft, Google, and Meta as potential targets. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
And as tensions in the Middle East continue to disrupt global energy flows, questions are growing over how lasting the impact could be and what it means for countries like South Korea. Our Oh Soo-young sat down with a Seoul-based expert.
The impact of the Middle East conflict could stretch far beyond the battlefield, shaking not only energy markets, but the global order itself.
This current conflict will change global energy order and maybe American dollar system, or maybe the link between the dollar and oil trade, and maybe in its entirety, American hegemony itself might change.
That's according to Kim Yong-gu, a leading Korean policy advisor on global energy politics. Kim says the crisis was not sudden, but rooted in America's shale revolution, which made the US the world's largest oil and gas producer and ended its dependence on Middle Eastern supply.
Ironically, the fact that America has become independent of Middle Eastern oil made Saudi and Middle Eastern countries look to China. Because most of oil exports that were directed to the United States now redirected to China. Iran, I think, is the best example. 90% of Iranian oil exports go to China.
The expert says this posed a direct threat to the petrodollar system, in which oil is priced in dollars, pumping up the American economy and its geopolitical dominance.
By attacking Middle East, I think the immediate impact will be Korea, Japan, even China, to make sure that their energy system is okay. They want to diversify away from the Middle East. The first country they look to will be American. American oil, American gas, which is what Korea is doing.
But Kim says any short-term gain for Washington could come at a far higher long-term cost. As the conflict stretches on and the Strait of Hormuz becomes increasingly weaponized, the dollar's grip on global oil trade and regional politics is under direct pressure.
Iranian government announced that those who pass Hormuz Straits must pay in yuan, not in dollars. So very clear that what Iran wants and how they connect to China. And that's why China trying to broker peaceful negotiation between Iran and Saudi Arabia.
With geopolitical fault lines deepening, Kim says the implications for South Korea are stark. Seoul has long been a downstream refiner, relying on major producers for supply, then processing that energy for global markets. But Kim warns that model now looks increasingly vulnerable. Kim says diversification and upstream investment are critically needed, as well as a shift to renewables. As the old energy order begins to fracture, countries like South Korea cannot afford to wait to adapt. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
The Trump administration has announced a fresh set of tariffs to coincide with the one-year anniversary of the so-called Liberation Day tariffs, most of which were ruled illegal by the U.S. Supreme Court earlier this year. Our Kim Do-yeon reports.
In light of the Liberation Day anniversary on April 2nd, Washington, D.C. time, U.S. President Donald Trump has signed proclamations to impose new types of tariffs. One of them is a flat 25% duty on imported manufactured goods made of more than 15% of their total content from steel, aluminum, and copper for goods arriving in the U.S. after 12:01 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on July 31st. This executive measure directly targets derivative products like washing machines and other home appliances. Before, a 50% duty was applied strictly to the value of the steel, aluminum, and copper components contained within the derivative product. South Korean manufacturers have consistently made up 40% of the market share in the U.S. home appliance sector.
There had been ongoing confusion at customs and among businesses, so they have created a more streamlined system. However, this places a heavier burden on exporting countries. While our administrative load may decrease slightly, the overall burden will grow for items facing higher tariff rates.
Simultaneously, Washington is targeting the medical sector, levying a 100% tariff on patented pharmaceuticals and their active ingredients. However, the impact on South Korea's pharmaceutical industry is expected to be contained. Under a bilateral agreement reached last November, South Korean pharmaceutical exports face a reduced 15% tariff, considered as a most favored nation. Furthermore, the U.S. proclamation explicitly exempts generic medications from these new tariffs.
South Korea does export some patented drugs to the U.S., but it primarily exports generic drugs. While a few companies might take a hit, the overall effect on the country's total pharmaceutical exports will not be that significant.
Also, according to the Ministry of Trade, Industry, and Resources, the short-term export impact of the new 15% U.S. pharmaceutical tariffs will be limited by a one-year exemption for biosimilars, while Seoul plans to closely consult with Washington to ensure fair treatment on future trade measures. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
As we head into the first weekend of April, South Korea is officially in full bloom. Now, among the top spots to take in the season's signature pink and white hues is Seoul's Yeouido Cherry Blossom Festival. Our Chung Hae-rim takes us to the scene.
A canopy of pink and white has finally swept over the capital. After a series of unpredictable cold snaps, the cherry blossoms along Yeouido's Yunjungno Road have reached their peak, turning the road into a watercolor painting of flowers.
We come here every year, but I took the day off today specifically to spend time with my second child while the oldest is at school. Seeing how much my little one is enjoying the flowers makes it all worth it for us too.
Yeah, this is my daughter and my son. Yeah, this is our first time here in Korea. The cherry blossom is so amazing.
My friends from my academy and I finally found the time to come out here together. Seeing the flowers like this feels extra special.
Visitors are enjoying the blooms nearly a week earlier than last year, with flowers opening on March 29th, as an unseasonal surge in spring temperatures accelerated the season, according to weather authorities. Local officials report that over 340,000 visitors flocked to this area on Thursday alone, a day before the festival's formal start. This year, the experience goes beyond just a stroll under the trees. The festival is divided into 4 theme zones. Visitors can explore the art queue featuring local artists or catch a street circus performance between photo ops. They can also grab snacks at the food and beverage zone, with food stalls run by local youth startups and traditional market vendors. With the festival running through Friday to next Tuesday, the city is prioritizing pedestrian safety. Traffic on nearby roads will remain fully restricted until April 8th. Officials are strongly advising visitors to use public transport. Cherry blossoms represent the end of a long winter and the beginning of a vibrant spring. The festival is expected to draw millions more over the coming days, all here to witness the capital's stunning transformation. Chung Hae-rim, Arirang News.
The number of visitors, both domestic and international, to the National Museum of Korea continues to rise. Now, amid this surge, some discussions are underway about introducing an admission fee. For more, we have our culture correspondent Park Kwon-woo here in the studio. Welcome, Kwon-woo.
Thanks for having me.
So Konu, how popular is the museum nowadays?
Really popular.
Yeah?
I actually visited the place yesterday and stayed until closing time, and I was so surprised to see so many international visitors from all over the places, and many of them with tour guides fully immersed in this experience. Bustling around the merchandise shops and enjoying their time, I truly felt a sense of pride. But before I get too much into the details, let's first check this out. A must-visit free tourist destination in Korea? These days, the National Museum of Korea tops the list of many travelers, so much so that they make time to visit within their first few days in the country.
It was a good starting point because I could get a whole picture of what I could see afterwards in the whole country.
Until closing time, visitors from around the globe make the most of every moment, capturing lasting memories.
Where we got to actually flip the pages of the books that they would be using to log the different people, the different items they were using, and being able to interact in that way helped us get that better understanding. It was really.
Through collaborations with K-pop, the museum is drawing even greater attention. That's evident in its recent collaboration with BTS, as it showcases detailed information about the historic Seongdeokdaewang Divine Bell, where visitors can hear its sound as featured on the group's latest album, along with related merchandise.
I think having that as a point of reference to make everyone kind of like come and learn about history and like experience things and be able to like have those tangible interactions with like the exhibits and things, I think that just kind of ties it all together in a bow really nicely.
With the surge in foot traffic, the museum has gained global recognition. Due to its popularity, this museum ranked third in annual visitors with over 6.5 million last year. That was followed by the Louvre and the Vatican Museums, while surpassing the British Museum. Among them, international visitors exceeded 200,000 for the first time last year, reaching 230,000, around 4% of the total. However, amid efforts to enhance the overall visitor experience and improve content quality, some discussions are underway about possibly introducing an admission fee for the first time in nearly 20 years.
Many major museums abroad have adopted paid admission systems. If it means higher quality content can be provided, it could be a better approach. A fee of around 5,000 to 10,000 won would not be overly burdensome.
The expert added it could help build a more premium image for the museum, while strengthening its self-sustainability and enhancing the overall appeal of its content.
Now, Konu, I'm curious, how far have discussions on introducing the admission fee progressed, actually?
Yes, so an official from the museum said no decision has been made yet, but acknowledged that such a policy could help improve quality and as seen in many major museums abroad. And the official added that the museum is currently developing a system to analyze visitors by factors such as age and nationality, which should be prioritized. And the issue has recently come to surface after the Ministry of Planning and Budget announced its guidelines for next year's budget that could include adjusting national facility fees. But that's set to be decided after sufficient consultation with relevant agencies. And if the museum introduces an admission fee, it would mark a return to a paid system for the first time since 2008.
So for the first time in over 2 decades. But Kanu, I'm sure the museum is trying to make more programs to appeal to more visitors, regardless of the introduction of the paid fee system, right?
That's right. So there's some good news here. The National Museum of Korea will stay open until 9 p.m. every Wednesday starting in April, extended from its usual 5:30 p.m. closing time. And this is part of the Culture Day initiative, a government program designed to encourage more people to enjoy cultural events on the last Wednesday of each month with discounts, now expanded to every Wednesday. And here's some more of what you can enjoy at the museum soon.
We're planning to present highlight exhibitions at the Calligraphy and Painting Gallery, featuring renowned artists like Kim Hong-do and Kim Jong-il. We're also preparing a special exhibition, exploring Korean food culture from the past to present, in line with the boom of K-food. We also plan to host special exhibitions in collaboration with internationally renowned museums.
And one expert says these efforts will help bring more visitors to the museum.
These places are perceived differently, as they are no longer seen as dull spaces, but as efficient destinations where visitors can fully experience a region's cultural and historical offerings. The key lies in expanding content, offering new and diverse experiences each season to encourage repeat visits.
The professor also suggested that fusing historical and traditional content with the rise in K-beauty products would be great to attract more visitors.
You know, that does sound like a fresh combination. Kanu, thanks for coming in tonight.
All right, always a pleasure.
It was a hazy day today, and rain is expected to begin tonight. This rain will mostly clear by tomorrow afternoon, although it may linger into the late afternoon in inland parts of Gangwon-do Province and Chungcheongbuk-do Province. Rainfall amounts are expected to be quite heavy, with over 150 millimeters of rain in the mountainous areas of Jeju-do Island, 40 to 60 millimeters of rain across much of the central and southern regions. Seoul will be also seeing 5 to 20 millimeters of rain. In addition, strong winds reaching advisory levels will affect Jeju-do Island and the southern coast. Seas will be rough nationwide, and swells are expected to impact coastal areas. Tomorrow, we're expecting large temperature swings. Seoul will start the day at 11 degrees Celsius, Chuncheon at 9 degrees, Daegu at 12 degrees. Then by the afternoon, Seoul will get up to 17 degrees, Chuncheon at 18 degrees, Busan at 19 degrees. Rain will begin again on Sunday night, starting in Incheon and northwestern Gyeonggi-do Province, and another round of rain is expected nationwide through Monday. Now here's a look at the weather around the world.
That is all we have for tonight. I'm Kim Dami. From all of us here at Arirang, thanks for watching and good night.